Good morning. Welcome back to the Red Mic. Happy Thursday. It is Thursday, 25th of September. Thanks for being here. Red Mic messages are leadership and life lessons picked up from 25 years as a public servant, 16 years as a youth football coach and scout volunteer, and 10 years as a mediocre athlete with far more heart than actual physical ability. Today's Red Mic message: extroverts, introverts, and those of us holding the middle ground. When you think about extroverts or introverts, you think, oh, well, that's everybody. But most people aren't all or nothing. They're somewhere in between. Your classic extrovert thrives on social energy. They're recharged by a conversation, crowds, activity. And the more connection, the more alive they feel. Where the classic introvert is the opposite. They may do fine in groups, but their strength comes from their solitude. Quiet is how they reset and they prepare for the next challenge. It's their recharge. Then you have sort of the hybrids, the people who don't fit neatly in either box. And you've got two versions of it. You have an introverted extrovert, i.e., they lean extrovert. They can be loud, they can be social, they can thrive in groups, but once the spotlight fades, they step away to recharge. They work the room, but they need to retreat. An extroverted introvert is the flip side. Deep down, they're wired like an introvert. Solitude is their fuel, but when the situation calls for it, they can flip the switch and they can appear as outgoing as any extrovert. They'll host the party, they'll give the speech, they'll lead the team meeting, but when it's over, they're ready to withdraw and reset. Little bit of both characteristics in both of those, both the IE and the EI people. And this actually came up in my interview yesterday. By the way, thank you to those of you who reached out about my interview yesterday. I got a few texts and whatnot. Thank you so much. It seemed to go really well. I had a bit of a rapport with them, and I'm not going to say where it was or who it was with, but after the interview, the lady who was leading the interview, she and I had a simultaneous joke come into our head, and she said it, I didn't, but then I told her, had the same thought. When I either get the job or get the news that I didn't get the job, I'll revisit it. There was this moment of connection where we were both like, oh, okay, I see where you're coming from. So hopefully that helps. I told the two people who interviewed me, I said, in 25 years of, state agencies do the Myers-Briggs tests a lot. Every leadership training, long-term, training panel that I've been involved in, where it's more than one day of discussions and talks, they've all had a Myers-Briggs section. Well, in 25 years of doing these tests, I have never had a single I, the letter I, show up in my answers. I read the question and go, click, and then you go back and you look at the Scantron and it says, oh, you have 0 I's. I've always landed full extrovert. In fact, when there was this governor's leadership course that I was involved in for executive level job. It was me and actually the guy who succeeded me at the Cairo board, a guy named Boyd, fantastic guy. He and I were both 0 I's. And then he followed me at the Cairo board, small world after all. Anyway, I have never scored a single I on any of those tests, but I told the people on the panel, I said, but oddly enough, my wife and I, we host a Halloween party every year. We call it Halabash. Throwback to my college. We had a party called Halabash. And for a good chunk of the party, I'll be, talking to people and, helping people with drinks and food. And if they've never been to our house, I'll give them the nickel tour and all of that. But then at some point during the party, I'll step out on the back deck or the front porch or whatever, and I'll just take a minute or two just for me, serenity now kind of thing. And my wife actually knows that if she doesn't see me for a bit, that's what I'm doing. Well, that's not pure extrovert behavior. That's more of the EI, extroverted introvert kind of, apparently I am wired like an introvert, but that's not the way I present at all. So I'm out front when I'm needed, but I'm sort of anchored in the space where I need to go to reset and recharge. What does all this have to do with life and leadership? Well, glad you asked. Well, you need to recognize how the individual members of your team are wired because it's going to help you use their strengths better. Give those extroverts the room that they need to connect and energize and recharge while they're in the room, sucking the oxygen out of the room, so to speak. Give the introverts time to prepare, reflect, and deliver depth. One of the biggest introverts I ever worked with, a guy named Bill, great guy, great communicator, but he needed time. Lean on those people for the strengths that they have that maybe you don't. I miss working with Bill. I really do. Great guy. Anyway, and when those IE or those EI people show up, know when you need to let them shine and have the spotlight, but also when they need time to recharge and reflect and do what they need to do to get back to where they can go back out front again. So here's the red mic takeaway. You need to know your own wiring. You need to honor that wiring and do the same for your team. Don't force yourself or them into a box that doesn't fit. So extrovert, introvert, or somewhere in the middle, it's not about the label. It's about knowing when to lean in and when to pull back. And that's today's red mic message. I hope you found it interesting. I hope you found it helpful. I hope you're able to put some of these things in place in your own life. I appreciate all of you. And again, if you reached out asking me about the interview, thank you so much. It meant the world to me. I love you guys. Tomorrow, red mic messages, hashtag Fun Friday. After last week's diversion for important reasons, I am getting back to hashtag Fun Friday tomorrow. Think about this and see if you can figure out what I'm talking about. It's an odd Venn diagram where both Denzel Washington and a Michael J. Fox movie intersect. How about that? I'll talk to you later. I'll see you tomorrow. Don't forget, life is short. Drink the bourbon.